the Parliament debated through midnight yesterday, and the opposition parties have unanimously opposed the repeal of the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee legislation.
Now you come into 2025 and you dilute almost every singular aspects, important aspect of this guarantee. Number one, you don't have a guarantee any longer. That what is the work on which the employment can be given. So if you give a work on other than the jobs which are listed in this framework, then you are not covered. So it is diluting the guarantee completely.
Even the funding has been diluted. Earlier, the center was giving 90% of the funding. Now it's down to 60%. So in a way, you are describing this as a highly centralized or centralist kind of regime.
In various ways, the government today, BJP government, Modi government has been able to centralize the fiscal finances almost entirely. We don't know what exactly Ajivika Didis did or not, but it's very clear that if 1.4 crore people, you are disbursing 10,000 rupees just before the election day and during the election, when even the voting has taken place in some constituency, it was certainly not. It's a complete distortion of the fiscal management, fiscal propriety. Absolutely. So this government is very clearly focused on using anything which is available for influencing the voters. That is true.
Hello and welcome to this special discussion on the repeal of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Guarantee legislation, which has been very controversial. We are seeing the Parliament debated through midnight yesterday, and the opposition parties have unanimously opposed the repeal of the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee legislation, considered one of its kind in the world in terms of guaranteed legislation for employment, which is based on demand from below. So there are multiple dimensions to this debate, to the way and to the manner in which this employment rural guarantee program, legislated rural guarantee program, is being changed, is being repealed and being replaced by a virtually a new scheme, and we will discuss. There are many dimensions to this, but what I'm going to do is focus on one very critical aspect of this. There is a political dimension to this. There is a philosophical dimension to this. There is a fiscal dimension to this. So today we'll focus more on the fiscal dimension, and in that context, we would discuss how the Modi government over the last 11 years has consistently tried to centralize the fiscal regime, and in some ways it has had a profound impact on center-state fiscal relations, what we call cooperative fiscal federalism, which is a very, very important component of our constitution and our democratic system of governance. So to discuss the fiscal aspect, fiscal centralism, as some people are calling it, we have invited Mr. Subhash Garg. He's a former finance secretary to the government, and he was with the Modi government as finance secretary, in charge of many policies related to fiscal federalism. And until 2019, he was with the Modi government. And he's written two books. There are two books to his credit in the last 5-6 years. And in his in his most recent book called No Minister, he has also delved at length with the nature of fiscal relations, which India is the changes in the nature of fiscal center-state fiscal relation that India is undergoing. Welcome to our show, Mr. Subhash Garg. Thanks for joining us on this very critical issue. Uh,
Thank you, Venu. It's always pleasure to talk to you.
So, Mr. Garg, I would open with a broader question as to how do you see this, number one, the repeal of this legislation and the manner of the repeal, and the way this is also being seen as a kind of assault on fiscal federalism as we have known it. And as we have practiced it in India for many decades. And let's hear your opening comments on this, and from there on, we will talk about the other issues relating to cooperative fiscal federalism. As we all know, in the new scheme that the government is proposing, the states now will have to put in 40% of the funding for any scheme that the center will choose in future under the new legislation, which is called GRAMG. And I mean, the short form, the acronym. I'm saying GRAMG because there is a certain political messaging there also. So let's begin with your opening comments on this, Mr. Garg.
So thank you, Venu. The evolution of guaranteed jobs in the country as a safety wall for the times when there is paucity of employment in the country is been fascinating. I think you're aware that in Maharashtra, it was the first guarantee legislation brought about in 1990s. Before that, it used to be what is known as centrally sponsored schemes. The government of India would start some program. And when the power of guarantee, which was given in Maharashtra, the central government in 2005 visualized that this is a very powerful way of sort of institutionalizing in the country a system which is completely demand driven, that whoever feels that you have a need to get a job at any point of time during the year can ask for a job to be given, and if the job is not provided, then an unemployment allowance is to be given. And that created a system in the country where people felt that whenever they don't have employment in the market, they will come and ask for the job. And it worked very well. So there was a guarantee of the job any time during the year, and to everyone, whoever wants. There's no classification, there's no eligibility, anyone. So this, I think, was a very, very important, powerful and people-friendly legislation which was brought about in 2005, and it has worked very well by and large.
Yeah, it worked very well. That's a big surprise, that in spite of having worked so well, this government wants to change the entire structure. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Please.
I'm coming to that. So, and you saw during the COVID time, this actually provided enormous relief to the people who were rendered jobless in cities and towns and everywhere. So that is a system which worked very well. And the basis of that guarantee was the central government's decision that we will pay the entire 100% wages, whoever demands it. That is what got the center into otherwise earlier, as I said, Maharashtra was providing it. So center's guarantee was backed by 100% wages payment. It also used to pay 75% of the materials, unemployment allowance was not paid by the center, which is understandable because the idea was that the state should provide jobs rather than not providing
Yeah.
the jobs, and therefore almost entire expenditure of the MGNREGA scheme or the guarantee was borne by the center. Now you come into 2025 and you dilute almost every singular aspects, important aspect of this guarantee. Number one, you don't have a guarantee any longer because
Yeah.
you find that for 2 months, which is said to be the peak agricultural season, there is no guarantee in operation.
Yeah.
The employment will not be provided. Secondly, the government of India says that we will bear only 60% of the wages in the material component. Thirdly, it says that we will, even that 60% is not guaranteed in a way, because we will decide that every year that what is the normative allocation for a state. And
Yeah.
if you decide a smaller allocation for the state, it is no longer the central government's guarantee. The bill also
Yeah.
provides that it's the central government which will decide which state, which areas, how much is to be given. And
Yeah.
then it also will decide that what is the work on which the employment can be given. So if you give a work on other than the jobs which are listed in this framework, then you are
Mm.
not covered. So it is diluting the guarantee completely. It's also
Mm.
diluting the financial obligations of the
Yeah.
central government very much, and leave it
Mm.
to leave the states to the lurch.
Yeah.
And
Well, okay.
finally, there are so many discretionary powers which the central government assumes that if there is any complaint, if there is anything which is found as irregularity, we will like what happened in West Bengal's case, even in MG Narega, where
Yeah.
it's not being disbursed for last 3 years. So
Yeah.
you have a highly centralized legislation which imposes the will of the central government on the states without backing up even with the finances. So it's a completely anti-federalist, if I may say so. So
Yeah.
in India now, there are two big forces which are emerging now. Is a
Mm.
centralist force which is represented by the current Modi BJP government, and the federalist force which is
Yeah.
represented by the everyone else. They're weak
Yeah.
right now, but there is a conflict between the two forces which is now playing out.
So, Mr. Garg, you made two very important points. You said that the scheme has been the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Guarantee Employment Scheme has been denuded of its the guarantee element, legislated guarantee element. It has been denuded of its, and at the same time, uh, the center has given itself massive discretion under the new scheme to choose when, where, which projects, in which state they would want to uh, uh, do the funding. And over and above that, even the funding has been diluted. Earlier, the center was giving whatever 90% of the funding. Now it's down to 60%. So in a way, you are describing this as a uh, uh, highly centralized or centralist kind of regime. Uh, and the fact that they did it with Mahatma Gandhi, the Manrega scheme, which you yourself said you've been in the finance ministry, you've been finance secretary, and everybody, there's consensus that this program had done very well. It had evolved well. There were initial glitches 2000 after 2005, but it was refined, and it was a lot of improvements were made, and it did very well, as you said, during COVID. Probably did well after demonetization. The demand probably would have gone up, and it was really providing rural employment, at least some kind of uh, some boost, I would say. Now, why do you think you have worked with this government, Garg Sahab? Tell me, what is the mindset of this government? I have read your book, the last book that you wrote, No Minister, in which you also very clearly hint not only hint, you clearly say that that this government's psychology, Modi government psychology, is one of completely centralizing everything, centralizing finances. Now, politically, it has been commented that the BJP government under Modi particularly is really working towards a building a party state where the lines between party and the government gets blurred, and all the schemes and funding is therefore directed through the party state mechanism. One party, one state. You know, and therefore the centralization is happening within that framework. And in your book, I remember you had mentioned in your book how you had received notes from the Prime Minister's office, or where even in regard to the transfer of taxes under Finance Commission, taxes are pooled and 42% are transferred to the states. And the states are free to do whatever they want with it. Even there, you had mentioned, I remember I had read your book and I had also conducted a discussion with you on that book, where even there the government seems to be, through several communication that you mentioned, seems to be wanting to even centralize, at least in terms of giving direction to the states on how they should spend this taxable share, the share of taxes that they get. Even there, the government wanted to push its ideas, its whatever, its you may call it hegemony or whatever, So therefore, I'm asking you, what is the psychology of this government?
See, Venu, the psychology is very clear. As I said, the current government's psychology is centralist psychology.
Okay.
And you may even describe this an empire builder psychology.
Yeah.
It's not, in my judgment, a party-based, unlike what you saw a communist party state kind of thing, or in China, or even in West Bengal, where party cadres used to decide. It is essentially two people at the top deciding and centralizing all authority in them. Okay. It's not correct to say that the central government has so far sort of established control on the taxes use, central taxes devolution.
No, I'm not saying, Mr. Gar,
let me clarify. But even amongst the Finance Commission recommendations, there are two elements. One is the share in taxes. The other one is the share in grants, of different kind of grants. So 15th Finance Commission recommended certain grants, and the government rejected all of them, that we will not transfer these grants. So far they have done two big things. As far as taxes are concerned, they have been able to reduce the actual inflow of taxes to the state by using these cesses and surcharges very elaborately and very widely. For example, excise.
Can you explain this? Yeah, Mr. Gar, I was coming to this. Please explain how they have used cesses and surcharges to dilute the fiscal autonomy of the states, because the cess and surcharge, I'm told, is now by some estimate it's nearly 15% of the total gross tax collection. So I want you to tell us how this happened. Yeah, please.
So let us say the Finance Commission's recommendation is 41%. Earlier it used to be 42%. After J&K was made into a UT, it's 41% of the total central taxes, which are other than cesses and surcharges, are to be devolved to the extent of 41% to the states. But if you look at the actual incidence of what we call gross taxable receipts of the government of India, which includes the cesses and surcharges also. So gross tax receipt is the total receipt of a tax. So for corporation tax, for income tax, for GST, how much the central government gets is GTR, right? the best way to find out is that what part of the particular income tax GT or particular taxes GTR is going to the state. That will tell you that how much is being withheld in the form of cesses and surcharge. To give you an
Yeah.
example, the central goods and services tax,
Yeah.
almost 40%, 39% to 40% of the GTR goes to the states, and that is because there are no cesses and surcharges on the CGST, except that now
Mm,
on pan masala, etc., the
mm.
cesses and surcharges have been imposed,
Yeah.
which the government says that we will give it in the form of a scheme, but that will
Mm,
bring out the share. But if you look at on the other extreme, the excises. So of
mm.
the total excise duties and cesses which the government of India collects, only about 6 to 7% goes to the state instead of
Yeah.
41%. Right. The
Mhm.
rest is all cesses and surcharges which the government of India retains it. And the other
Mm,
taxes are in between. The income
mm.
tax, the corporation tax, and customs duty are in between. On the
Yeah.
whole, on the whole, roughly about 32% of the
Mm.
GTR goes instead of 41%. So we may
Oh,
take as 9%, 8 to 9%, but of the
yeah.
total devolvable, you are right, it's about 15%. So that is the
Yeah.
share in taxes which is being stopped by using the stick or the device of the cesses and surcharges. But other
Yeah.
than taxes,
Mhm.
everything else which used to go from the central government to the states, whether it is the finance commission grants or whether it's through the centrally sponsored schemes or other schemes, there the central government has now in last 10 12 years had completely strengthened its vice like grip.
Yeah.
Everything is being controlled by the central government.
Yeah.
And like in this scheme also we discussed, so it is now being it will be implemented as a centrally sponsored scheme, not as
Mhm.
a statutory guarantee. And that is where you bring that only 60% would be paid, not 40%, not
Yeah.
100%. We will decide how to give, how much to give, etc. So that
Yeah.
is where the central government has strengthened its complete control and the grip on the centrally sponsored schemes and the other grant schemes of the center. So in terms of fiscal federalism, if we take both these elements together, the
Yeah.
taxes as well as non-tax devolution, in the
Revolution.
non-tax part, the central government's control is totally centralized. There is also
Yeah.
another aspect of, for example, if you look at even the GST, by
Mhm.
using the its majority in the GST Council, the central government has been able to impose its will, that reduce the taxes here, do this and that. There is a
Mhm.
large impact on the states about that. So, in various ways, the government today, BJP government, Modi government, has been able to centralize the fiscal finances almost entirely.
So, Mr. Gar, I'll explain to you what I meant by a party state fiscal centralization arrangement. I'll give you an example. You're right. I agree with you that there are two people who at the top who are now controlling everything. They are they've increased their discretionary powers to hand out money to the states over the last 11 years to a great degree, which you just explained, whether it's on the non-tax side, centrally sponsored schemes, grants, etc., or on the tax side, as you said, by appropriating cesses. What I meant, uh, Mr. Garg, was when a government like this assumes so much discretion to spend money, like in the case of MGNREGA now, on any scheme, any uh, uh, on any project that they wish to fund, uh, or or at any time they wish to fund, or in any state that they wish to fund. What happens is they use that power to, like, the Bihar elections. In Bihar election, what happened? They said there was an ongoing scheme, Jivika Didi, where some self-help groups, women self-help groups are already formed, self-employment scheme as they call it, Swarojgar, and then they suddenly gave 10,000 rupees just a week before the election. They started directly putting money in the accounts of 1.5 crore women. That was the plan. And they said, oh, this is part of the old scheme. And this will enable, this 10,000 rupees will enable them to now create some new schemes on which there will be a further loan be given of 2 lakhs if those schemes are acceptable. Now, what I'm saying is, because the center increases discretionary power, like in the case of MGNREGA, now the scheme has been changed now, so they have about 95,000 crore, which was spent last 2-3 years. I think the spending on MGNREGA has gone up to 95,000 crore. So they have this money at their disposal, and they can now use this money in any future election. Before the election, they will invent some scheme, and they'll start throwing the money at the voters, and they'll call it an ongoing scheme. And as we all know, in Bihar, it was an open secret that all Jivika Didis, lakhs and lakhs of them, were actually campaigning for NDA. So they had become party cadres. So what I'm saying is that centrally funded beneficiaries through DBT also become party cadres. So that's what I mean when I say a kind of a party state fiscal regime. This is my formulation. Anyway, so I'm coming back to Subhashi. I'm coming back to your formulation.
No, on these comments, I think this is the very important issues there. Can I just make something?
Please.
Number one, Bihar scheme was the state-funded scheme. Yeah. It was not a central government funded scheme, though it was the first installments were delivered by Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right that calling this scheme as a new scheme or as an ongoing scheme instead of a new scheme was literally a fraud on the financial management.
Yeah.
What we describe as a new scheme as opposed to a continuing scheme is that for a continuing scheme there is a budget provision. It is announced in the assembly. It becomes part of the budget, and that scheme has been approved following the budget announcement and budget provision. In this case of Bihar scheme, that Mukhyamantri Rozgar Yojana, there was no budget provision. There was no scheme announcement until a couple of days before the election.
Yeah.
Therefore, that calling that as a continuing scheme was absolutely illegal. It's a misfortune of the country that the Election Commission was looking at the other way. Yeah. There have been many cases in the past, including the one which I was instrumental in implementing in Rajasthan in 2008, a scheme called Bamasha, which was announced, implemented, and where the disbursements had been made 4 months in advance. But even that was stopped, that you can't disburse cash at the time of the election. Tamil Nadu, many other states, but this time Election Commission did not step in at all to stop this, and this clearly was a bribe to the voters. But they are not party cadres, so you can bribe the voters, right? You can use the machinery which is available for sending the messages. We don't know what exactly Ajivika Didis did or not, but it's very clear that if 1.4 crore people, you are disbursing 10,000 rupees just before the election day and during the election, when even the voting has taken place in some constituency, it was certainly not. It's a complete distortion of
Yeah,
of the fiscal management, fiscal
absolutely.
propriety, right?
Mm.
Uh, but that was a state scheme. The central
Yeah,
government can do also the same thing, and it
yeah,
was in a way it was done in 2019 when
yeah,
this PM Kisan scheme was announced. But this was
yeah.
announced
I
in the
know.
budget,
Yeah,
and
you were
and
there in the
correct.
finance ministry
So
when it was.
it was announced with retrospective effect because one installment was to be completed. So this government is very clear, Lee, focused on using anything which is available for
Yeah,
influencing the voters. That is
absolutely.
true. Right.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the larger point I was making. So you're right. Jivika Didi was a state scheme, but Mr. Garg, the spending, the total spending announced just before the elections one estimate is that 40,000 crore of new announcements were made before the elections, uh, and the total capital outlay of Bihar uh, is uh, is less than 40,000 crore. So now what I'm saying is money is fungible. So now Bihar won't have money for capital expenditure. So the center will bail Bihar out by through some state loans or whatever, some facilitating loans, etc. So in that sense, I mean, broadly, I'm saying what I'm saying is that the center is managing all these things in a very, very centralized sort of way, which you're right. 2019 PM Kisan. I mean, you have written about PM Kisan in your book, and it was also a very, very blatant kind of scheme to influence the voters. So in that sense, yeah. I mean, it is aimed at voters. So therefore, what I'm saying, Mr. Garg, is, do you feel that the more discretionary powers that the center takes on itself, in terms of in the way that they can uh, keep control over finances and spend at their discretion when they want to do it, how they want to do it, what projects they want to do it, it becomes a political weapon. It becomes a There is a weaponization in terms of their politics and their ability to influence the voters. That's the larger point I'm making. Would you agree with
Very
that?
true. Very true. See, if you look at the evolution of fiscal federalism in the country since independence, the tendency or the upshot, the central messaging approach of every institutional authority in the country, including the government, was to make all the transfers to the states as formula based, as non discretionary as possible. Right.
Yeah.
So the finance commission transfers were non-discretionary. Finance commission would take certain factors into account and then allocate it, and the central government would have no discretion to change even a single rupee of that. That is the way the likewise even the normal central assistance or the centrally sponsored schemes type, the developmental assistance which the central government would give, there was an evolution of Gadgil formula, which later on became Gadgil Mukherjee
Mm.
formula, and 95% of the assistance which the central government was funding from its own budget was also going in a non-discretionary
Mm.
formula way. But
Yeah.
after this, it started somewhat in the Congress government, but not very majorly. It was a very minor. Manmohan Singh
Mm.
government started some special packages, but those
Mhm.
special packages were basically the central project, not the
Yeah.
money transfer to the states. But
Mm.
now in last 12 years, what is happening is that all the non-tax devolution is becoming increasingly discretionary, as you saw in this
Yeah. Yeah.
this bill, or you see all other even that capital expenditure promotion scheme, which was
Yeah.
brought in by the central government in
Mm.
2020 and 21, is also a lot of discretion, that if you
Okay.
do this, you will do that. So
Mhm.
you decide how much, you put conditions on the state. So so there are two big tendencies you can see in the program's evolution in last 6 7 years. One is increasingly the central government schemes are becoming discretionary. Secondly, it is putting more and more of the conditions on the states.
Yeah.
That is the other feature. So
So they are
you
constraining the states' fiscal autonomy in that sense, right?
correct, and to sort of strengthen the discretion.
Yeah.
If you put more conditions, then you can decide that this condition is not getting met, or this condition has not been sort of taken care, or you are violative. So you can decide that a state is violating and say opposition state, so then you can stop it. But B state, which is a BJP state, is also violating, but you don't do it. That is what
Yeah.
happens when Tamil Nadu education program assistance have been stopped, or West Bengal's MGNREGA assistance has been stopped. So you can use those conditions, and then
Yeah.
you have also used the CAG audits and other things also to
Yeah.
sort of stop the flow of funds to the. So discretion is strengthening, conditionality is to the states, which is making literally. I'm quite constrained, not very happy to call it, but the government is reducing the states to municipalities. That is
Yeah.
that is the
Yeah.
kind of level we have come to
Yeah.
make the fiscal federalism literally as centralized union of the
Yeah.
in the country.
Yeah. So, Mr. Garg, I want to come back to the term that you used at the beginning of our conversation, where you said that there's an increasing sharpening of the conflict between the federalists and the
Yes,
centralists. Centralists being
yes.
the current government, the Modi government, and federalists being the opposition. How do you think this conflict, which is now really at its peak, I would suggest, how do you think will this play out politically, or in the coming few years? What is your sense?
See,
What
my
do you hear
sense
from
is
bureaucrats? What do you hear from bureaucrats, your juniors, your former colleagues in the states, etc.? What is the
so
sense you get?
I don't talk to service colleagues. So it is my own assessment of the situation which I'll be sort of
Yeah.
speaking about.
Yeah.
This right now, the centralist forces are not only very well organized,
Mhm.
but they have very large presence in the states. They rule most of the states,
Yeah.
and there is a very large cohesion amongst the centralist forces. So you
Mhm.
find very little dissent or
Mhm.
difference or debate amongst the centralist forces, and like a
Yeah.
true empire, that
Mhm.
centralist forces are coming very hard on the country, and they are deciding, and they are able to do legislation in a jiffy. You don't
Yeah.
even tell that this law will be brought in, but then suddenly you introduce it, get it passed, because they have that brute authority as well as a complete cohesiveness. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, the federalist
You can call
forces.
it brute cohesiveness. You could call it.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
whereas these federalist forces are highly divided, and at the core, the Congress party, which is in a way pan-Indian federalist party
Mhm.
today, it was not a matter of choice for the Congress to be a federalist earlier. It was also having lots of centralist tendency, but these days it's behaving
Yeah.
more like a federalist force. But it's
Yeah.
very weak force. There are
Mhm.
strong states on the coastal side, whether it's Kerala or Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, West Bengal, which are strong, but they are for a fine. Their battle. So I find the federalist forces in the country to be highly disjointed, fragmented, and even their philosophically, even their narratives, even their coordination is weak. So, in my
Yeah.
my sense, while this is more desirable, in my personal opinion, that the federalist forces should strengthen and become the dominant force in the country, and
Mhm.
centralist forces should weaken.
Mhm.
In Unfortunately, the state of play as it is today is that the federalist forces are quite weak.
Yeah.
They will need to strengthen themselves, build
Yeah.
partnerships, alliances, bring
True.
more cohesion amongst them. Then only they can challenge. So next 10 to 15
So,
years,
so,
it looks very difficult.
yeah. Yeah. So that was Mr. Garg very, very lucidly explained, and you're right. Unless the federalist forces get their act together, uh, they will they will continue to be treated like municipality by the centralist forces, as you yourself said. I think that is the tragedy of our times. Thank you very much for talking to us, Subhash Garg. We'll continue this discussion in future. There'll be many more occasions to talk about this. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you, Benu.